Are you saying yes with purpose and no with conviction? That came to me like the fourth time I almost died, and that I was not using my own power to make decisions in my life and was feeling a victim of circumstances perpetrated upon. People are forcing me. I don't have a choice.
Hello and welcome to the Creative Lotus Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Zaki. Hello and welcome to the Creative Lotus Podcast. On this week's episode, we have SUSAN DAMANTE. Welcome to the podcast. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Creative Lotus Podcast. On this week's episode, we have actor, writer, voice actor, and singer and producer, SUSAN DAMANTE. Welcome to the Creative Lotus Podcast.
Yeah, it's called multi-hyphenate. They're calling it these days.
I love it. That's what you should be, a multi-hyphenate. If you have the ability and the creative talents, put them to use. So SUSAN, first of all, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. But I want to start off with, for the listeners, kind of giving a little background of maybe where you're born and raised and kind of how you got started in all of the multi-hyphenate abilities that you are sharing with us today.
Oh, okay, great. Born and raised in San Francisco Bay Area. Palo Alto Hospital, before it became Silicon Valley. Grew up in Redwood City, which we used to call Deadwood Shitty. Because it was like the only place that was any fun was the Round Table Pizza and hanging out at the 76 gas station.
Wow.
But I went to pretty much most of my life, I performed. It was kind of the way I used my imagination, because there was a lot of trauma in my family from day one when I was born. And so I would go out of my body most of the time to join my imagination. And it was really, I look back now, it's really the place where I was able to survive the trauma. Luckily, I didn't get, drug addicted or any of those things. I just used my own head to go out of my body. And so, I was in, my mother put me into a tap and ballet and baton and modern dance studio. And it was kind of the beginning of my going out of my body, because we were all lined up and in a holding room, a green room, and they were showing cartoons for us to be quiet. And I got into the cartoon and I missed my cue. So I missed my whole dance. I was only like 5 years old. And it was kind of like, that was then the reprimands kind of like, what's wrong with you? Hello, wake up, but I really learned dance and singing and loved performing. And I remember, right around then was, The Wizard of Oz would play every, I think, Thanksgiving, I think it was. And we had I lived right down the street from the school. And so I remember one time after seeing The Wizard of Oz, going to the swings and swinging on them and singing somewhere over the rainbow, and just seeing birds flying and being in that scene, So there's a lot of memories of me, play acting, when I was, below 10 years old. And then, going into school, I couldn't really, I was always getting marks, from the report card. SUSAN is daydreaming during school. And so, I would just be so bored that I'd just kind of like, just be looking out the window, thinking of whatever and not paying attention to So, I say nowadays that if they had different way of teaching. I think they do this now with charter schools and whatever, is that to teach and learn to know how a child learns, because I'm an audio visual learner. I'm not a memorizer or a test taker or it's hard for me to read for any long time. But if you put an image in front of me, I can study it and concentrate on it for 2 hours straight, In high school, I was, pom-pom girl, which was the dance team. I was senior prom princess, junior prom princess, track queen. One funny story is that during my being a track queen, my father was always one of the great things he taught me was a work ethic. You don't get anything for free. So if I wanted to have some money, he would make me weed the garden or, shovel stuff or pick up stuff. And so I was weeding the garden and I got this terrible case of poison ivy, poison oak. Ooh. And I didn't really know I had it. And so I had to, lay cheek kisses and lays on all the winners of the track team. So who knows who got poison oak after that. Yeah. Wow. Really. Wow. I mean, I got it everywhere on my back, between my thighs. And it was summertime too. So yeah, that was agonizing. And then, when I graduated high school, I thought, I'm going to be, I took all the things that women in my day took, was shorthand and typing and filing and, spelling. Even to this day, people say your signature is so amazing, because I always practiced cursive writing. Yeah. That was a big deal that we don't have these days, and so when I was sitting with my mom in the den, and she's like, what are you going to do? I said, maybe I'll go to, community college, or, because there was no money per se to go. And it was never encouraged in our family to have a higher education, because it was, my father was second generation Italian and grew his own business, started his own business on his own. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. Right. And, so, I said, maybe I'll be, so I had, some dreams. I thought, I'll be an executive assistant to a big star, a celebrity. Yeah. And, I'll do their typing and their filing and all of that, and I'll travel with them. And she said, well, why don't you're pretty, you should go, and you enjoy, performing, you should go and do some commercials. I read this article that this woman, took her kids to San Francisco and had them start doing commercials. You should do that. You could make a lot of money. Yeah. And I said, I don't know how to do that. And she goes, well, let's call Channel 2. So we called Channel 2.
Talk about ambition.
And she's like, Channel 2? I want my daughter, she wants to do commercials. How do we go about doing it? And they're like, oh, ma'am, we're not, you need an agent. You have to get an acting agent. And, we're not the people that, we don't hire people. We do the production. So they gave us I think there were 2 agents in San Francisco at the time. Ann Brebner, and they think they were both named Ann Demeter and Ann Brebner. And so I said, well, what do I do? And she goes, she goes, put on your tent dress. Because I was a sewer also. So I sewed your tent dress that you just made. And I'll take a Polaroid of you. And then you'll go up there in person. You take your Polaroids, you go up, dress up nice, go up there and go in there. She goes, that's what I used to do when I was a teenager. I'd go walk into the place and they'd hire me. You should just go in there. So I went up to Ann Brebner Agency and, hi, I'd like to do commercials, please, with my little Polaroids.
Your Polaroids.
And the receptionist, of course, saw, because I'm half Italian, Swedish, Irish, and I have great genes, and she was like, who's this girl coming in the door and all dressed up? And so she brought the modeling agent out. And, God, what was her name? Geraldine Scott. Wow, I can't believe I remember her name.
Good memory. That's...
Yeah. And so she came over to me and said, how old are you? I was 19, I think, or something, 18. And she said, well, you need to get a portfolio. And so you need to learn how to, model. So go to John Robert Powers Modeling and Finishing School and, get your portfolio ready and come back and see me. So I went home and, my father wouldn't pay for college, but he would pay for a finishing school, so off I went to John Robert Powers Modeling and Finishing School in Palo Alto, and I became their biggest star. I mean, we learned everything about clothing. We did tea room. The first thing I did was tea room modeling, which doesn't happen anymore. It's like you wear this clothing and you go to the Stanford Shopping Center into Blum's, chocolate shop where they're eating or having lunch, and you walk around and, how much is this? Oh, this is $30 and that's whatever. And you show them the clothes in person. You sell clothes like that. So I started making some money, and then I started doing photo shoots for them, and I was on their cover. And so I got this job at the Belmont horse race track, where I was to dress up like a pilgrim for Thanksgiving.
Oh no. Not a pilgrim.
Dress up like a pilgrim and give out winner circle turkeys to the people who were in the winner circle, that the jockeys and everything.
Right.
And I had a live turkey. All the vegans that are listening probably are just dumbfounded right now. They had a live turkey on a leash. I actually have a picture.
Gosh.
I have a picture of it. And a woman comes up to me and says, well, hi. She goes, are you a model? And I said, I'm just beginning modeling. And she goes, well, what else do you do? And I said, I do a little singing, but I'm not that talented. I'm just making a living doing, modeling. And she said, well, have you ever thought of running for the Miss America pageant? And I said, no.
Wow.
And she said, well, if you have, if you can do a little song or dance or, something, you can have a talent, come to this tea that we're having for new contestants in San Mateo. And here's the date, blah, blah, blah. So one of the things, I played sports all of my life too, softball and badminton and golf. I mean, every kind of sport. I'm not a master of any of them, but I can do all of them. And so I had that competition spirit. So it's like, I'm going to go to this tea and see what this is all about, right? And so when I entered the room, I thought, I could beat any of these girls out. I was very arrogant. And so I became a contestant for the Miss San Mateo County Miss America pageant. And I had started going to movies. Like, movies were the other place where I could go and, use my imagination as well. And my mother used to take me to movies too. When my father was at the motorcycle races, we'd go to the movies. And I saw Funny Girl for probably 8 or 9 times, and brought every friend, every relative, anybody who would go with me. I would go to see Funny Girl with Barbra Streisand. And everybody always said, well, why do you like that movie? It's about an ugly girl that, nobody pays attention to. And I said, well, it's kind of what I call the curse of the attractive woman. People think that you have it made. you're attractive, so everybody opens your doors. Everybody, wants to see you, wants to know you. But inside you feel actually kind of alone and not recognized because people are looking at your outside and they're not taking the time, especially women would, that as soon as you came in, you were attractive at all. They think you were a bitch or, arrogant or,
right.
And so a lot of times it felt really lonely being an attractive person. So I related to Fanny Bryce, my favorite line of hers in it. I'm a bagel on a plate full of onion rolls. Nobody recognizes me.
That's so good.
So good, right? And so
yes,
I wrote a monologue, first time of my writing, because we couldn't use any of the writing from the actual text. So I wrote my own monologue, and I did I'm the Greatest Star as my talent, and I won the Miss San Mateo County pageant and was going on to Miss California. It was a big deal, and that's when I got connected to Lynn Day, who was the entertainment writer for the San Mateo Times, and he was like, doing all kinds of publicity for me, and I was doing appearances all over the Bay Area, and everybody was like, she's gonna win Miss California. And so when we got to the California competition, there was a woman from Hayward, California. She was blonde, skinny. I'm Italian. I'm a Zoftic person. I'm not a skinny person. And my hair was black, at that time, brownish black. And she was blonde and skinny and played the violin, right? So here I am. I'm Zoftic. I'm a brunette, and I'm doing, I'm the greatest star. I am by far, And so, as the competition went on, there was a surprise that I won best bathing suit. Was really shocking to me because, I had been exercising and dieting and, trying to get my figure as good as I could. And I was a woman who played a piano piece that got the talent thing. And so it came down to Miss Hayward and Miss San Mateo County. And we're sitting there holding our hands. And Susan Anton was the outgoing Miss California. And she came to me and she goes, I'm crowning you tomorrow. There's no doubt about it, right? Yeah. And so when they're announcing, they finally go, first runner-up, Susan Damante. And winner of Miss California, I can't remember her name, Miss Hayward, right? Karen was her name. Yeah. And
of course it's a Karen.
It's a Karen. I never thought about that.
God damn it, Karen.
It's a Karen. Oh my God. That's hilarious. So you should see, on the, we don't have it was a live show, but there's pictures of me with just shock on my face. And everybody was kind of like, like this, and
soft claps. Yeah.
Yeah. Like soft claps. Nobody knew and all that. So she went on. The poor thing, they dyed her hair so badly that it was falling out. She didn't even make like the semifinals in Atlantic City. And so Lynn Day hired, so the next year, Miss San Mateo became Miss California, kind of like a backlash of, and she was a tumbler. She did gymnastics, very beautiful brunette. And they invited me back to dance in the show and, have announce me as the first runner-up last year kind of thing, trying to make amends, I think. And then Lynn Day sent me to Atlantic City the year after that to be a junior reporter for him. So I actually did get to go to the Miss America pageant. That was, that was a little bit of consolation, but really, basically, it was kind of like I was just this very open and enthusiastic and thought the world was just the greatest place on earth. And suddenly it was like, no, things don't turn out okay. Things, no matter how good you are, no matter how talented you are, no matter how much you try, you don't win, right? And so I took my scholarship. The scholarship was like $600 or something. And I took it and went to the American Conservatory Theater to study classical acting, and was trained in iambic pentameter and scansion and Shakespeare and all of the Ibsen and Chekhov and all of that. And really, that's where I got the basis of my training was at the at ACT. While I was at ACT, Carnegie Mellon University came to scout for actors who could go to their university. Like some people would transfer from community college, for instance, so they came, and I applied and I got in. And I was going to go, to further my studies in classical theater. And I went to my dad. I said, Dad, I've been accepted into Carnegie Mellon University. It's a great opportunity for me, to deepen my acting prowess. And he was like sitting on his lounging chair, and he's like, college? You want to go to college? I'm not paying for college. I didn't go to college. I own my own business. You're pretty. Go get a job. Wow. And that's where I went skulking out of the room. And so what I did was I just, got in my Volkswagen Karmann Ghia that they don't make anymore and packed up my stuff and came to LA to seek my fame and fortune. And the cherry on this, and we'll probably, get on to your next question, is that about 6 months into my trying to make it here in Hollywood, I was introduced to chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and Nichiren Buddhism, which pushed my life into a completely different direction.
Yeah. No, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I think, going through that whole process, it's funny because I'm also born and raised in Northern California. So
that's right. I forgot.
Yeah, from Sacramento. So I totally get it. I mean, growing up in Northern California, although you lived in San Francisco and kind of the Bay Area, which is more us poor folks living in Sacramento, we're always joking that like, oh, the big city is San Francisco. They got the bridges and the skyscrapers. We're just out in the, the woods or the boonies of Sacramento.
Right.
But yeah, I think, it's amazing that you kind of were like so determined to make it, right? And go into entertainment and do what you really wanted to do, which is, like acting and performing. And yeah, you took it, and to take a chance like that to go, after going through school and everything and coming to LA is no easy feat. What was, if you want to kind of share, kind of how was that process of coming to LA? And then, like you said, you got introduced shortly thereafter to, practicing and chanting Nichiren Buddhism with, the Soka Gakkai International, which is how we know each other.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to kind of know some, like maybe some of the struggles or things that started to happen the moment that you got into Los Angeles.
Yes. You sure you want to get into the struggles? There are many.
Yes. Maybe we'll shorten the list. Maybe the biggest struggles that you kind of had to go through, if you will.
Well, I think that the family trauma started when my brother was 2 years older than me, and we had so probably 9. So it was Roman Catholic background, and so I was 9 he was 11, and a baby was born, Richard Rudolph Damante. And he was born with hydrocephalus, which is water on the brain. Now that, now it's not a problem that much. I mean, they can put a stent if it does happen. I don't even know if it exists anymore, actually, but at that time it was fairly prominent as a babies were born with this water on the brain. And so he had like a 5-hour operation when he was 3 months old or 5 months old. And I was a preteen. I would run home to play with him every day, and we were just great buddies. And he died at 14 months old. And that catapulted my mother into alcoholism, my brother into drugs and alcohol, my father into being absent and not being able to face anything, so not coming home. And me going into, the bathroom, and that was the only safe haven I could go into, where I'd make faces in the mirror and do imagination games and stay in there, and people would not bother me because they felt I was in the bathroom, but they didn't know I was in there making up stories and whatnot. And so, I think it was, I was about 15 when I started having bulimia. And I didn't know until further on in my life and my struggle with it that it wasn't about food, But I'll never forget, it's not about food, it's about abject rage that's unexpressed, really.
Wow.
But I remember, my father he acted in a way that wasn't really him, which I found out later when he had Parkinson's disease. And we talked about, things more openly, but, he was authoritarian. It was like, do as you say, do as I say, not as I do. And so one night, and my brother was already, I think he was coming to the table on LSD and whatever else he was taking. And they would have fist fights, and he'd run out the door, they'd be under the table pounding each other. And so, I was the good girl. I was I'm going to try to keep peace. And so, one night he was just forced me to eat my dinner. He was like, you haven't eaten your dinner. I break my ass making money for you to have food on the table. You're going to eat every morsel what's on that table. Right. And sat there for an hour, just shoveling it step by step in, and then just went and purged afterward. And that kind of started that. But, it was also the pretty girl who is Zoftic. You're supposed to be skinny. You're a model. You need to lose weight, and all of that kind of, pressure in terms of your figure. And so all throughout the last part of my high school and into my 20s, I had, an terrible eating disorder. And actually I was at the market buying groceries to eat and purge when Sandy Clayton approached me and said, I want to introduce you to this ancient practice of chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And I turned around and I was like, oh God, the LA weirdos are after me. Because I don't know if you had this.
Welcome to LA.
Yeah. It was like the San Francisco people were so like, ugh, LA, especially in the 70s. Oh, yeah. It was like, it's smoggy down there, and in there, it's Hollywood, and they're fake, and, blah, 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 blah. And so I was like, the LA weirdos are after me. But Sandy, she was just such a kind woman, and she had kind eyes, and, just a nice, kind person, and she was just like, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm an actress. I just moved here from San Francisco. And she was like, oh, you should really try this practice. You can really, you can chant for anything, and you can, achieve your dreams. And she was, and she said, can I have your number? And I was like, no, you can't have my number. And so it was perfect where she gave me a card. It had the address and the time, and it was right down the street. From, it was on Lincoln and Rose. It's now, I think, Whole Foods, but then it was, I think, ironically, Lucky Market. And, she made me say the words. That was the one thing. She had me out loud say the vibration. This is the vibration, so say it out loud. And she taught me Nam, Myoho, Renge, Kyo. And then she put her hand on my shoulder and said, I'll be waiting for you to come through the door next Tuesday. I'm so excited. So my Roman Catholic guilt kind of kicked in. And I was kind of like, I got to go to that damn meeting because I'll feel guilty. Yeah. I'm going to let her down if I don't go. But I had, went back to my one room, all utilities paid bungalow and $100 a month, I think it was at that time, 1972. Wow. And started trying to say the words. Nam, Mahi, Ringi, Ku, Nam, Moho. And so I showed up at that meeting, and then I heard inside. I was like, oh God, I'm not going in here. This is ridiculous. What am I doing? And she came up. Hi, you came. I'm so excited. Come on in. Take your shoes off. Ask questions. So I went in. I was the only new person there, and they were chanting to an altar with a scroll in it. And I started giggling with tears in my eyes. What am I doing here? But here's the rhythm that we talk about in Nichiren Buddhism, the circumstances being perfect for you. Was I'd given up boys, had broken up with my boyfriend. I'd had it with all these producers and directors coming on to me in Hollywood. I was mad at my dad. I stopped talking to him, and I was like, I'm going for my career and my girlfriends, and I'm going to surround myself with amazing women. And all the men were in Japan at that time. There was a ceremony happening. And so a woman was leading the meeting, and she had a little baby that was crawling on her. And after everybody gave their testimonials and stopped chanting, she turned to me and said, would you like to start chanting, Susan? And I said, I gave up Catholicism in 8th grade. It was never confirmed. I'm not an organized religion person. Plus I'm a happy-go-lucky person. I'm a positive thinker. I don't really think I need, religion. And she said, isn't there anything that you get stuck with or stuck on that keeps happening over and over again? And you say, I'm a positive thinker. I'm a happy-go-lucky person. Why am I back here? And that pierced me. I didn't tell her I was vomiting 8 times a day, but I just said, yes, I feel like I'm a hamster I'm trying so hard to be a good person. I've never killed anybody. I've never done terrible things. I've tried to be a good person. And I just feel like I'm on a hamster wheel. And she said, well, that's what we call karma in this teaching. And you have good karma because you have good habits, and you have bad karma because you have bad habits. It's pretty much that simple. And she said, but this scroll that we chant to is based on the Lotus Sutra, and we call it the sword of the Lotus Sutra. And when you chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, you create a spiritual sword that will cut through that pattern. And you can change and transform all your suffering into joy.
Yes.
And I was like, what? No one had ever said to me, your sufferings can be transformed into joy. Sufferings to me was something goes bad, I'm bad. I'm effed up. Right. I'm broken. I need to be fixed. What's wrong with me? I'm a sinner. Whatever it is, it's me. It's my fault. And for her to say, I can take those sufferings and transform them into joy. It's like, where do I sign? How much does it cost? Because I'm a starving actor.
Yeah.
And at that time, I think the donation was $5 or something. So I gathered it and I started. And one thing that Sandy gave me was she came with a calendar and she said, I want you to mark off this calendar and chant morning and evening for 90 days. And if you don't get any proof, I'll quit, she said.
Wow.
And I said, I don't want to quit. And she goes, no, that's how confident I am that you're going to get result from this practice.
Yeah.
And she started me off being consistent. And in 50 years, I just celebrated 50 years. I've never missed chanting twice a day in emergency rooms, on planes, and on the set. In a room with a roommate. Excuse me, I'm just going to do my prayers. I'll try to be quiet. But it's kind of a promise I made to myself and have kept over the years.
Yes. Incredible. So thank you for sharing that, first and foremost. From that moment, right, when you kind of started practicing and then Sandy, shared with you, like, let's really test this, from those struggles that you had from your childhood and then coming to LA and kind of trying to figure that out. What was kind of switching that, if you will, poison into medicine, or having kind of a breakthrough in your career or in your creative fields after you started to practice and kind of get your bearings?
Yeah, I started chanting, because they said you can chant for anything. So I started chanting for acting gigs, like right away. Mm-hmm. And I went out to audition for, funny enough, ironically enough, the Great American Beauty Contest, an Aaron Spelling production. And I was auditioning for Miss Maine. And yeah. And it was a lead role. It was a co-star role. And I went in and I brought in all of my theater training, which I think they weren't used to seeing in Los Angeles. And I auditioned with a scene where my father isn't able to come to see me in the competition. And I really want him to be there. And I'm very devastated that he's not. And so it's a phone call, and I chanted. It was like, I really want to get this role because it's up my alley. I know what it's like to be in a pageant, but it's a really deep role. It was, all the other ones were like fluffy, but she was, having some struggles, and they showed that in the movie. It was a movie of the week on television. And so I went in and sat on the ground and took their phone and put it on mute and did the whole scene on the phone on the floor, and, speaking to my dad, crying, sobbing. And I remember looking up, and they had tears, these executives. One or two of them had, and they were kind of silent after it. And so then, I got a message from my agent that I got the role, and the producer called me in. He said, I need to speak to you. And so I went in, and he says, you've been here 6 months. We don't know who the hell you are. Such, veteran girls had auditioned for this role, and there's no doubt about it. We wanted you to do this role, but I don't know why. Wow. And you better not put egg on my face, basically. You better meet up with what we see in your potential, kind of thing, right? And so, yeah, that's how I kind of entered my practice and I realized it was like, it was the beginning of me understanding life force or life condition, right? So you have all these girls who are beautiful and they're talented, and they're, a lot of them have already worked in Hollywood, but there's SUSAN DAMANTE. What's different about her? What is, why do we feel compelled to hire her? And I realized that was from my my life condition from chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, right? Yes. And so Farrah Fawcett was in the cast, and Joanna Cameron, who actually just passed away. And one funny story is Joanna Cameron's character was a women's libber. So part of the story is about, the women's lib people coming, and at the very end, when she wins, they're going to protest and say this is a cattle call. And when people started protesting pageants as being, cattle calls, and not looking at the girl but looking at her, physically, and so that was written in there. And so she wins the pageant, and when you're crowned, usually natural tears come. When you're, my gosh, I'm so, because it's so much pressure doing the pageant. And then when you win, even when I got first runner up, I was sobbing, and, so the camera's on her, and they bring it up to her, and then they go cut, and they come in and they blow menthol in her eyes.
Yeah.
And then they start to roll the thing again. And I am absolutely flabbergasted. How could you not get real tears? You are an actor, I didn't say this, but I was like flabbergasted that somebody would blow, fake tears in your eyes. This is the joy of acting. You have to get your own, So it's kind of my introduction to, Hollywood, and the difference between, deep stage training and, TV and film. Yeah. So that was a really great experience in that sense.
Yeah. So from there, you're in Hollywood, you're kind of showing this amazing proof, right? Not only of the practice, but your own ability, and kind of flooring people because they're like, who the hell is the Susan Damante that came out of nowhere? And then you starred alongside Robert Redford, correct? In the movie The Candidate. Is that's not right. Correct? Or is that correct, Heather?
It was actually before I came to Hollywood. While I was studying at the American Conservatory Theater, I did background work, or we were called extras back then. And it was how I made extra money. And so I did extra work on Butterflies Are Free. That's how I met Milton Katselas, the director. At that time, now the background actors get separated, can't really interconnect with people, unfortunately, but, nowadays, back then you could mix. You would be at the lunch thing and you could meet Goldie Hawn, or you could meet, Barbra Streisand. I did extra work on What's Up, Doc? Although I couldn't approach her. I just didn't have the courage to go up. I still to this day regret not going up and saying how I felt about it, how she changed my life, Yeah, I did extra work, and one time they called me in to read for the part. And I went in. At that time I had glasses, the Gloria Steinem glasses, big, wire rims.
Yeah.
My hair was down to my butt, straight down to my butt. But I curled my hair, and I wore my contact lenses and put makeup on, and went in to read for Hoyt Bauer, who was very famous casting director at that time, and didn't get called back. I thought, oh, okay. So then I was called in to do extra work at the Paramount Theater in Oakland. Anyway, so they were doing a campaign. He was doing a campaign speech, Robert Redford. So I hair down, Gloria Steinem glasses, my jeans, my sweater, feet hanging over the front of the thing, reading a newspaper while waiting for. And the director approaches me and says, "Hi, are you an actor?" I said, "Yeah, I'm an actor. I'm here, to do extra work." And he goes, "Come with me." And he takes me over to he said, "I want you to meet Robert Redford and Peter Boyle." And they hired me for that part that I didn't get. for the audition. And it was basically a groupie. And during those times, you know, when the 70s, those great European 70s movies, they'd always have these mysterious women that would come in and out of the scene, but they wouldn't say anything. They'd just be like, this girl would be in and out. So I didn't have any dialogue, and they asked me, do I want to be Screen Actors Guild or Screen Extras Guild at the time? And if I was Screen Actors Guild, I wouldn't get a credit. Or Screen Extras Guild, I wouldn't get a credit. But I would be able to, they wanted to hire me as a stand-in for the woman who was playing his wife. So that's where I agreed to that. Although my agent was mad that I did that, but I wanted to learn how to do film. And I did 6 weeks with them traveling around the Bay Area. I learned two-shot, over the shoulder, master, all the lingo. It was, you know, just perfect, you know, for me to learn how to, you know, and I brought my mom and my aunt to the set, and Redford was so nice to them and got pictures with them and signed autograph for them. And I kept in touch with quite a few of those people, Peter Boyle being one of them. And so then, you know, that was my Robert Redford thing. And the other thing is that I had one scene, you couldn't hear me, but I had to whisper in his ear. And I went to the director, Michael Ritchie, and I said, what do you want me to say? And he goes, whatever you want to say. And I was like, oh my God, so I was up all night, like, you know, what do I say? And there's a scene about, you know, right after that, we see him walking out of my room, right? And I'm walking next to him, and there's the insinuation that an affair has gone on. And so I was like, I don't know what to do. What do I say? I don't know what to say. Oh my gosh. And so I ended up saying, I'm in room 207. See you afterwards, or something like that. And then he took me aside at one point and sat me, you know, in the theater and said, this is how important this part is to the movie. We're not going to hear your voice, but this is, you know, because it was such a great script. It's actually award-winning. I think it got an Academy Award. About politics, and, you know, starting to really see the, you know, insidious corruption that goes on, and the fakeness of propping the candidate up and making him look better than he really is, type of thing. And he, you know, this young woman was his respite to feel something. And, so it's great.
So this was all prior to you coming to Los Angeles then? Yeah.
That's my Robert Redford experience happened in San Francisco.
Amazing. That's pretty awesome to have that on your resume as well, having done that. And I'm sure maybe that opened some doors for you come down to LA and seeing and dealing with
you're that girl. Oh, that girl. Yeah.
Exactly.
It appears.
That's incredible. So I did my research and I looked you up and I read your bio and everything, but I would love to know kind of what do you consider to be kind of one of your greatest achievements, and that you really personally take pride in, and that you may not be necessarily known for.
About a year and a half after I started chanting, I got sick, and I struggled and fought through Crohn's disease for 18 years. And so, the career I feel like I could have had and was on the way of having kind of got cut short, but I still managed to work in the early part of my 30s. And, you know, through chanting, I was able to really battle the disease, and I'm now 30 years Crohn's disease free this year. Yay.
Clapping.
Incredible. And I'm determined now to have the career I always worked for and wanted. I'm working on that very diligently right now in the early 2020s. But it's interesting. Another interesting experience of life condition and rhythm is the Wilderness Family. 3 movies I did in the late 70s, early 80s. And I'm proud of that the most because people now still write to me on Facebook and on social media. And they'll say, you know, that was the only movie my parents would allow me to see when I was a kid because it was G-rated.
Oh, wow.
And I loved I loved the family, the Robinson family, and gave, you know, it just made me feel so much joy. And now I wanted to let you know that I'm watching it with my nieces and nephews tomorrow in the, you know, Saturday. And thank you for your work. And the other thing is Columbo. Columbo's I did Columbo, an episode of Columbo that was on a cruise ship with Robert Vaughn. And people remember that and write to me about that today as well. But the Wilderness Family was another one of these things where I think it was Ricky Nelson, who was a famous singer, his wife was up for the role. And I had done quite a few television shows by this time as well. I was working a lot. But also very sick. So it's getting hard for me to, with Crohn's disease, you can't be on a set. It just, it's so painful and terrible. And you can't keep people waiting when you're in the bathroom, you know, having terrible episodes. But I managed to, you know, continue to have bouts of wellness. And I went up for this role and my agent said, you can't have any makeup on. You got to wear, you know, a scarf on your head. You know, just be as downplayed as you possibly can. It's a woman and a man who bring their child to the wilderness because she has terrible asthma and her health is terrible. And they want to move out of LA because of the smog and all of that stuff. And so I heard through him, he said, yeah, there's some, you know, name, all that thing, still that way, you know. I have a sort of a name in certain circumstances, but I don't really have a name in the industry. So he was just like, you know, you've got to go in and knock their socks off. Well, I knew how to knock their socks off. I still know how to knock their socks off, right? But, you know, if you're right for it or not, I don't know. And so anyway, went in, auditioned, they call me back. And during the callback, I kind of tripped up on what I was trying to do. And I just said, hey, hold. So can I start again? And according to what they said, that cinched myself as, you know, for getting the job because they could see I was a professional and accomplished actor, that I could, you know, work with the camera and know when I wasn't quite on, you know. And so got the part. And in the SGI, we had culture festivals that were happening where we were spreading the joy of this practice to people through culture. And so we would have, we would rehearse these for a year. And when they hired me, I was supposed to go to Hawaii to be a hostess for our international president and his guests in Hawaii for the weekend. Yeah. And so, of course, the days that we were supposed to leave for Utah and rehearse were those days. And so I was like, my first leading role in a feature film. I've been waiting for this. Now what do I do? This is a terrible obstacle. I don't know. I can't pass this up. And so I called who I called my Buddha dad, Mike Kikamura. He was out there. He was there in Hawaii. And he said to me, I can't tell you what to do. But he said, you need to chant and pray about, you know, the bigger picture of your life. You're going to have many, many jobs coming through. But he said, we're erecting an island on the beach at Waikiki that hundreds and thousands of people will be able to see. And we got the permits. We got everything that we felt, they said it was going to be impossible to do. And we're going to make this happen. And just want to let you know, there's never going to be another floating island, but you're going to have many, many opportunities as an actor. So I called the producers and we had a conference call, and I said, I need to go to this. I've been planning for a year to go to this culture festival, and I need to go to this. So I can come right afterwards. And the director, the producer, who was, the money man, said, no way. We're going to hire the other woman that, and Robert Logan, who was playing my husband, was begging on the line, and the line producer was like, please, we want you. And I was like, this is, an opportunity I can't pass up. And I've planned it for a year, and I'm going. So I went and, I didn't have an episode of Crohn's disease there, but my feet were swollen and my body was just racked. And I was standing at the viewing stand with President Ikeda and his guests and watching the performance on that island in the Waikiki Bay. And something just told me this is a turning point for me. This is an eternal moment in my life, right? And when I got home on my answering machine, no cell phones in 1975, hundreds of messages. What, can you come?
Wow.
The other woman didn't work out. We need you. The kids hate her. They just don't want to act with her. We're having trouble with the children. They love you. Can you come? Can you come? And
wow.
And so off I went and I did 3 of those movies. And one of the great things I think accomplished was after the second one, it became internationally. It went internationally and was making a splash everywhere, including Japan. And I was able to go to Japan and do a publicity tour.
Wow.
And be able to speak at a hall in Japan that's called the Makiguchi Memorial Hall, with 1,000 people came to hear my experience, because there weren't many Americans practicing at that time. And it was mostly, Japanese and some other countries. Now there's 192 countries with people practicing, but I'll never forget looking out at the sea of people and just seeing white handkerchiefs coming up to people's eyes, because they were so moved by, this American girl talking about my practice and how I had had so much victory with it. And
wow. Incredible. I love that. That's so moving and amazing. I only saw snippets of the films, but it looks amazing. You were actually interacting also with like live animals in the show, weren't you? As well, like as a part of the series? Like that how did you then physically, going through Crohn's, also deal with doing 3 movies and also being so active and alive on set? I mean, that just seems so difficult.
Yeah. Very, very difficult, especially the second one. I had an episode. I was in the hospital just prior to it. So if you examine it closely, I'm very thin in the second one because, can't really eat well when you're having a Crohn's disease episode. But, the stamina, part of what Nichiren Daishonin teaches is that when you connect to this mystic law, that's the larger vibration of the universe with your own life, what you experience is this amazing power that you have in your life. And also my determination and love of acting, catapulted me too, I feel, and I told everybody about it, and that if they saw me missing, that I might be having a hard time in the restroom, and that they were going to have to wait, till I was able to come back out. And by then I was, dealing with which medications were going to work okay with me. I part of Nichiren's teachings is a part of the Buddha attributes is forbearance, endurance, and that's what I started to cultivate. I feel like in my life was, this, and I remember, also, there's a mystic side of it, when you're performing, because performing is an act of giving, right? And we had a women's meeting at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. We had a rock band, and I was the singer in the band, and my group leader at the time, she was also a singer and guitarist in the band. And I was working so much and not sleeping properly. I didn't take care of my health. I learned how to take care of my health, but I didn't at that time. Anyway, so we were singing The Eye of the Tiger from Rocky. And
love it.
I lost my voice. I'd say I have a Tina Turner voice. I never lose my voice, but I lost my voice. And I went up to her and I was like, I'm not going to be able to sing. I can't sing. I can't have it.
Oh, no.
And she was like, oh, no, you're going on stage and you're going to sing. And I was like, I can't sing at all. And she was like, then you're going to go up there and you're going to make the cause. Right? This is what we talk about in our Buddhism. Make the cause, take the action, the courageous action. And you're going to mouth it because you're going to encourage those people, hundreds of women who have come to this meeting, right? So we get on stage and it's bam, 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 bam. And we start singing and my voice is like a powerful horn. It comes out and I'm singing with gusto. And we finish and everybody stood up and clapping and everything. And I go off the stage and I'm like, I can't believe that happened. I gotta go rest. So I saw the mystic principle of, cause and effect there, where if I was doing that for the sake of others, something powerful happens, My voice came out.
Absolutely. Yes. At the right moment, you stood up and made the cause.
Exactly.
I love that. So has there been a specific moment in your career thus far that you felt like you had really, quote unquote, made it, or maybe a highlight of your career? I know that you talked about the Wilderness series, but if there was another thing that you felt that was really a made it moment?
I would say, the made it moment is, to me, is when people recognize your talent. When they see, I would say that first job on the Great American Beauty Contest where people went, wow, that's powerful talent. And I've carried that. I'm starting to haven't launched it yet. My own podcast called Tell Me Everything with Susan Damante. And I interviewed an actress and she actually worked for years on soap operas, on this, on that. And, she talked about she stopped. And I said, why did you stop? And she goes, you are an actor from your soul. You will always be an actor, even when you were in the middle of almost dying 5 times of internal bleeding. You were an actor. You were going to find your next way to express yourself as an actor. I'm not. I never was. I liked it. It was fun. I made a living, but it's not something I long for or what I'm not an actor with my soul. So the made it thing is really, I make it every time. I just did a play at Theater 40. It was a farce. It was very physical. And afterwards, people were just like, whoa, what you did on stage is like I couldn't keep my eyes off of you. Right. And so it's not a I made it, but it's just a process of making the story, telling the story with all of my might. I don't know if that makes
absolutely.
sense.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'll make it this year, Alan. I don't know. It's still trying.
Well, no, I think, but I think you also make a good point though, right? That so much of, what Buddhism teaches you as well is that it's really about the journey, right? It's not making it to this far off destination of making it in the eyes of whoever. But I like how you said, really, it's like people recognizing you and appreciating the work that you're doing has more of an effect on your career and probably the feeling of like, that benefit feels good rather than just being like, wow, I won this amazing accolade. And now it's kind of like, what next? Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's why they talk about the Oscar curse. When people, you know, win an Oscar, sometimes they catapult into the rabbit hole and can't get back out sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you shared though, that this actress who you spoke with was really sharing that like in you, like who you are as a being is an actor, right? And that the passion and drive that you have no matter what will like never give up and will consistently keep doing that. So yeah, I think that some of us are just born that way, right? And that is what we love to do. And as long as you still love what you're doing, I don't think you'll ever kind of like fall off that path necessarily.
No, not at all. Maybe I'll pass away on a stage somewhere in the middle of a soliloquy. I don't know.
That would be a dramatic exit, if you will, if I've ever heard of one. And then Susan slowly just went away, and that was it. Oh, okay.
You know, I once looked up. Somebody was asking about it, like who has actually died on the stage. There's quite a few. I found it, online. There's quite a few people who have, passed away while performing. It's interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
So a couple more questions for you. So I didn't realize this until kind of researching and learning more about you, but both of your daughters are actors as well. And I'm just so intrigued to know kind of like, how does that dynamic work as like the matriarch of the family, obviously, but then, having two daughters who are also in this crazy business that we call, the acting world.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's interesting. Natalie and Vanessa are two totally different human beings coming out of the same womb. And Vanessa is the actress at the soul, like me. And Natalie she's now an acupuncturist and a healer. She was the amazing actress, but it's not her deep vow as an artist. She doesn't have that. She doesn't miss it now. And, I'm kind of sad about it because she's amazing actress. She's kind of got the character side that Vanessa used to be kind of jealous. Like, I can't play a heroin addict. I can't play, a gothic girl. Natalie can, because Vanessa's got the Ingrid Bergman chiseled features and stuff. She's starting now to be able to get a little bit more character roles. So she's enjoying that. But no, Vanessa came to me at 11. I think she was 11. She had just started chanting also. Asked me to teach her the sutra. And she's like, I want to be an actor. And I was in the middle of Crohn's disease. And I was like, no, don't be an actor. Just be a child, enjoy your childhood. Don't be an actor. And she was like, but I love it. And same thing with her, she knows all the characters in The Wizard of Oz. She can act them out to you right now. She would spend hours watching, musicals and Snoopy story. And she was always into the story, you know, like with the Wizard of Oz. She came down one time. We always laugh about this. And the Cowardly Lion, when he goes, I got cycles under my eyes. And she came down and she's like, what are cycles? What does he have cycles under his eyes? And I said, he has a Brooklyn accent. He said, I got cycles under my eyes. So I taught her about a Brooklyn accent at that time. But, you know, she would watch Oliver, know all the songs, and, you know, just from a very early age loved, you know, one of her birthday parties, they acted out Madonna's whole album. You know, so when she was 11, she's like, I want to be an actor. And I said, oh, God, no, please don't. And so then I had a talk with her and I said, you know, their father, my ex-husband, said, you know, if you were a doctor, wouldn't you teach them how to be a doctor? They wanted to be a doctor. Like, why wouldn't you give them, you know, your knowledge and prowess of being an actor since you were 18. So right. I chanted about it. And then I sat down with Vanessa and I said, okay, I want to do this. And he was like, you know, this is something you can do. You don't have to be on stage or in front of the camera. You can, you know, while you're battling this disease, you can, you know, help her to have a career. And so I went to her and I said, okay, so here's how it's going to go. You are first a human being. You're a family member. You're a student. And then you're going to be an actor in your spare time. Right? And I said, and I'll tell you, if we do this, I'm going to go all the way. I'm going to get you an agent. You're going to go. And I said, you might miss your prom. You might miss your graduation. You might miss the best, you know, party that you want to go to. Concerts. You won't be able to do after school sports. You'll have to go directly to auditions afterwards. And you'll be on location and miss a lot of your friends' parties and things. So, and she's like, well, you're making it sound terrible. And I said, okay, well, let me know. So she went and she chanted and came back and said, I want to do it. And so I told her, I'm going to give up my career, although my career was nothing at that time. And actually I was starting a career as a fitness trainer because I started to realize I needed to get a strong body to combat a healthy and strong body to combat the disease as well. So I was exploring psychologically and therapy and physically and, you know, how to, win over the disease. And so I called one of my friends who's a director and he introduced us to a really good agency. She was only 14. We went to a kids agency for 11, 12, 13, yes, for about 4 years. And she got a lot of commercials and stuff like that, little work here and there. But I called the director, now that she was starting to get work and looking like she was really serious about doing it. I called him and he introduced us to a really great agency. She was 14. She also started modeling at that time. She modeled from 13 to 16. And, which, you know, a lot of it was, I had some controversial people wondering why, you know, it was very, you know, I'm sexualizing my daughter in photos. And she was able to do photo shoots with Bruce Weber and Stuart Sterling. I mean, so many, Matthew Ralston, and almost got hired by Calvin Klein. But we went to New York and she auditioned for it. And I can't remember her name right now. Johnny Depp's girlfriend, Kate Moss. They were neck and neck on that one. But you know, but Vanessa didn't really want to model. So she, but anyway, so I brought her portfolio in there. She hadn't done really anything. And, one agent was in there, and then like 6 of the agents, they were on the phone, get in here and see this girl, and, they were auditioning for part 2 of the Blue Lagoon. And, she auditioned for it and got, at the time, they had this quotation, you would get a quote, like when you do a deal ahead of time and you would give a quote. And so then you would have to match, the next producer would have to match that quote. I don't think that exists anymore, but she got a quote from that. And, I think it was, I forget the German girl that got it. But anyway, that started her, working. And then she was able to, and the thing was she couldn't do really acting classes. So I was kind of her acting teacher. Like I'd pick her up at school and I'd have already read the screenplay. And then I'd say, here's the breakdown of the character and here's what's going on. And we rehearsed the car on the way to the, or, if we'd have some time ahead of time, hopefully, but not always. And, so then one of her big breakthroughs was, Ladybugs with Rodney Dangerfield. And that was the same thing where there was a turning point where she was really starting to get called back, and, she got a call back, and we lived in Topanga and she was going to school in the Palisades. And, they were like, get in here. And so I had Larry, who was in town, head her off at the pass and tell her, don't get on the bus to go to Topanga because we're going to this callback. And he comes over to me and goes, you better talk to her. She doesn't want to go. And I was like, what? And she's in the back seat crying. She's like, every Friday when Michelle, I think her name, her friend's, Michelle wants me to come to a sleepover, I have to go and I can never go. And I have to tell her I can't make it. And then I just, and I got in the back and I said, okay, you have an agent now. They're working hard. I'm working hard, but it's your life. I told you, it's your life. It's your career. I'm not getting anything for this. I'm just supporting you. And, when you make some money, I'll get something. But right now, nothing, I'm just doing this because this is your dream, I thought. So I'll put the keys in the car and take you to Michelle's, but I'm going to have to let your agent know you're not serious about this. And that's fine. She kind of sat there for a minute and she's like, okay, let's go. And we went to Paramount, and it was, who's the guy that wrote, Family Ties? David Gary Goldberg, I think his name was. And, it was a new series that he had written, and they invited me in. They would never invite me in because, all the stage mothers were so evil at the time.
They kind of still are.
I think so.
Stage mothers are stage mothers.
And, I always had to prove myself that I wasn't. Although I was very strict, I was very strict about her being treated properly. But anyway, they invited me in. I got to look at the, the monitor, and I could see he was getting the bug. Because he, usually they don't laugh, they don't say anything, they don't react. And he would just, every time she said a line, he was like, and I could see her, she didn't break her character, but I could see in her eyes like, hey, I landed that joke. That was pretty good, Afterwards, she was skipping down Paramount, and she's like, that was fun. And I never had an argument from her after that. She realized this was something she wanted to do. And then she got Hocus Pocus, which is, as you know, classic Halloween, famous movie that people love. And
I think it's amazing that you were able to, raise Vanessa, obviously, and she's seen success as well in this acting field. And then from there, obviously you were dealing with Crohn's disease. Did you feel like you had to put that aside, your own career, and then were able to slowly kind of bring it back after you obviously started to feel better? Or were you still pursuing your own acting career while also kind of raising and coaching and helping Vanessa, and actually Natalie as well, to be in this field?
Yeah, it was really just sort of like the culmination of what disease was teaching me in my life. And now, it's just really, it's become like a badge of honor. I mean, it's really like the best, amazing benefit I could ever have gone through, because I really revealed who I am now, and I like this person much better than the previous person. And it's in the teachings too. It goes deep. But anyway, that, Nichiren teaches that you are revealing your true and discarding the shallow and taking on the true. And I feel like that really happened. And so that was in 1992. And then soon after that, Vanessa she actually went to college, at Columbia University, Barnard, Columbia, and was devastated and started getting panic attacks. And she's shared this, so I'm not talking behind her back, but because she's called me out on that, like, don't tell my story. So yeah, she started having panic attacks, and that's when she really started diligently practicing, was at that time. And then she transferred to Pitzer College and went there for about a year. And then I was still managing her at that time, and she got called in for Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut, 1995-ish, something like that. And I went with her to London on that shoot, as I always would do. And she was 19, going on 20, I think, or 21. And she had an amazing experience. I had an amazing experience with Stanley Kubrick on that set. And he really, he took her aside at one point and said, you could really do this. You could be what Marilyn Monroe could have been had she not gone into the rabbit hole. And also he mentioned her always not trusting her communication with her directors, and turning to her acting coach was, Strasberg. And so she was really affected by that. And it was starting to kind of break apart with us. She didn't want to hear what I had to say in terms of her acting. And it just, it was kind of sandpaper between us. And so she basically fired me on Eyes Wide Shut. Basically.
Fine, Mom. See you later.
We've soon overcome much of that adversity. We have an amazing relationship, but I had to take responsibility. I had to listen to her, and there was a lot of stuff I had to, look at in my own life, and I'm sure she'll say she did too. And so that's when I I turned a corner in my own thoughts about my career and went back to studying acting. And it was 10 years Crohn's disease free in 2002 when I went to New York to study acting for the first time. And I was really the first time in many, many years. And it was like somebody put a hook in my talent and started just pulling it out. And I wrote my solo show, which is about overcoming adversity, called Life, Death, and Entertainment. I have a toilet on stage, and I say, here's where I sat. Here's where I sat for 18 years, bleeding from my ass. Anybody bled from their ass? And people kind of go, yes, I did. What do I do? So it's a story. My father was murdered in 1996. My brother eventually died of drug and alcohol poisoning for actually internal bleeding, ironically enough. And so I tell the story of standing up to victory through all of the adversity on stage. And I started writing that in New York.
Wow.
Lived in New York pretty much off and on for 10 years, and just reawoken my beautiful artistry, and been, plugging away at it since. I moved back to LA in 2012 and helped my mother to die beautifully. And, just started to, that's when I went into, working with the Foley Mara Productions, and that they helped me to create my short film called, Repercussions. I wrote it, I starred in it, I produced it, and it's won many awards at film festivals. And so learning that aspect of it was a lot of fun. And now I'm kind of, I set up my account on ACX. I'm going to go into narration, book narration, as a way to always hoping to continue to make money as an artist, and finding different ways to do so. And then I got a couple of, guest star. I've been called in for a couple of good guest stars in the last month. And so something's stirring up. Some stuff is stirring up.
Congrats. Well, yeah, as you're saying, right? Buddhism is always talking about how, you're making causes. Everything's based on cause and effect, right? So the more causes you're making to help others, go through their struggles, figure their shit out, if you will, the more you start to feel the fortune and benefit from it. And that's not why we do it, but it is part of the process of doing it, right? So the title of this podcast is, the Creative Lotus. And as you know, as you're a Buddhist practitioner as well, the lotus blooms, but it also kind of seeds at the same time through this muck and this gunk and crap underneath. So my analogy for this podcast is that, like, through all the struggles and, what you just shared about your family, and your own personal struggles that you've gone through, can be considered, right, like the muck or the shit underneath. But this beautiful lotus flower is what, you kind of present to the world and are able to create. So do you feel like there is a lotus flower moment of your life at this point? And if so, kind of what does that look like and or mean to you? Yeah,
I just, I do feel like I have blossomed my lotus for sure. I was able to buy my own home, which was an impossible task, in January of 2020. I pretty much just jumped off I'm going to own my own home cliff and emptied all of my retirement funds and said, this is where I'm putting my money. And so it's a struggle. I'm struggling right now to, make ends meet. But, I feel like the 50 years of consistent practice of chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo has, it saved my life. And not to mention taking leadership in the organization. So to, care about another human being, starting out as a self-centered, self-consumed, selfish actress, and in a sense being given the opportunity to care about another human being in this organization has, really kept me alive. I really have to say. And, that's the blossoming. And the thing is that, I kind of almost feel like I keep beginning. I feel like now I'm beginning again. I keep on beginning. And where I should be retired and, slowing down, I'm doing more than I did in my 20s, because I have health, I have vitality, I have life force and energy, and people are watching. And everything I do is, for the sake of others. So there's never a moment. I always ask myself, I was just telling someone yesterday that I'm encouraging that has Crohn's disease. I was like, ask yourself, are you saying yes with purpose and no with conviction? That came to me like the fourth time I almost died. And that I was not using my own power to make decisions in my life, and was feeling a victim of circumstances perpetrated upon. People are forcing me. I don't have a choice. And over the years when I've been encouraging people, I've found that to be a thread with chronic illness, especially Crohn's disease, of feeling crushed, feeling put upon. Somebody's doing something to you. And Nichiren Buddhism is the exact opposite of that. You already have the power. You just have to manifest it. And so that's kind of my lotus flower motto. Right. Say yes with purpose. Say no with conviction. And you'll never feel sick again, really.
I love that. That's beautiful. Well, what is kind of a day in the life like for Susan Damante at this point? Just kind of sharing that you're a multi-hyphenate, right? So you do the acting, you do the writing, you also produce, and now you're doing voice acting as well. So kind of, what are you doing, and what is your work ethic like now, since you've been in this industry for a while, you've experienced all these things, kind of how do you?
Yeah. Well, first thing I do is turn off the alarm, get out of bed, use the restroom, open my altar, turn on the coffee pot, and start chanting. I used to kind of procrastinate and go around, and then, I would do what I jokingly call, we do gongyo, it's called. I would call it brongyo, like brunch gongyo. And, and our mentor says, win in the morning. Now, I'm not a morning person, but I've been able to encourage people around, over the years. Whenever you get out, you have the night shift. When you get home, you do evening gongyo. When you wake up, if it's noon, you do morning gongyo. That's your rhythm. But don't miss, because, the day's gone, so I missed. No, don't miss, right? Or at least try your best not to miss. I mean, I don't put that on anybody, but... and so, that's my go-to thing. I'm constantly, because I don't have a 9-to-5 job, I'm constantly struggling to make goals and keep goals and make myself accountable. And so I hired, Holly Moore. She's, her business is called Peak Performance VIP Accountability. I hired her last December, because, months go by, and, the marketing materials you need as an actor right now with online auditions and whatnot, it's very important what you're putting out there, what people can see. And so my website was not up to par. My Actors Access profile wasn't really good. And so she's been really helping me to make those goals, set those goals. Turn on a timer, which I've never done. Turn a timer on for 25 minutes. 5 minutes, take a sip of water, stretch your legs, come back. And then the first thing she said was, okay, look at all you did. Because when I hired her, I was also hired to do the lead in a play at Theater 40, and it was very physical and, exhausting and fun play, but it was a lot. And being the lead, all the dialogue, you're on stage. I think there was 15 minutes or maybe 10 minutes. I'm not on stage. So, she said, well, most people, and then she started showing me, sort of mirroring to me. She was like, you're amazing what you get accomplished in the day. A lot of actors much younger than you come to me and say, oh, I got cast in this play. I can't do any accountability stuff right now. Wait until I finish. Yeah. Yeah. Or like, I don't have that kind of capacity. So, she said to me, look what you accomplished this week. You learned your lines. You went to rehearsal. You did a page of your website. You got your photos up there. You did blah, 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 blah. So now how are you going to reward yourself? And it was like crickets. Reward myself. Yeah. How are you going to look what you did. How are you going to reward yourself? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what, buy myself a gift? What? She goes, I don't care. Get a pedicure, go in your backyard, enjoy a lemonade, see your grandson. I don't care. But if you're going to work with me, you have to, every single week, you're going to report to me how you've rewarded yourself for your good work that you've done. Yeah. And so it's really changing me in terms of my day in a life of, is to, I mean, even just yesterday when I met with her, she was like, I had overbooked myself, and somebody texted me and said, are you coming for blah, blah, blah? And I was like, oh. And so she wrote, and I wrote to her, we do Voxer, the app Voxer. And so I put a thing on there saying, oh, this is what happened. And she was like, make sure you have your calendar in front of you and that you are available before you say yes to people. And so that's always, that goes back to say yes with purpose and no with conviction, right? And so I always have to follow that life motto is, it used to be I'd say yes to everyone and I could never make all the yeses I told people. And then they'd be pissed off, or I wouldn't mean it when I would say no, right? So nobody knew how to, depend on me or not. And so that's what I'm learning with Holly. And, she's a member of the bigger thing called the 2% Collective, which is, Jen Rudolph's, company. And she started it because, she said 2% of all actors get the opportunities for work. So how do you become the 2%? And it's not because you're too old. It's not because you're white. Wow. It's not because you're black. Yeah. It's not because you have experience, don't have experience. It's because you don't know what the market wants and you're not giving the market what it wants. So how do we make your package be the market that people are wanting? Wow. And the market's always right. Right? Like she says, tell it, we were on a Zoom when I first started, and she was like, why is Jeff Bezos a billionaire? So we're all saying, well, he had a good idea. Well, that, things come, on time. We can, and she said, it's a couple of things. It's he crushed time. He took the aggravation away and he made it easy. So if you those three things. So that's what you have to be as an actor. Solutions. When somebody's looking for the chief of police and somebody goes, oh, and I submit you, your agent submits you, what do they see on your profile? Do you have a chief of police headshot? Does it pop out? And then if they click on that, do you have media that shows you being the chief of police? And is it easy to find? Right. And so then they don't have time to search through your thing, try to find where you are. What's this? Oh, yeah. And she goes, you collapse their time, you make it easy, and you eliminate their aggravation. So that's what they've been teaching me. And I'm not quite there yet, but that's what I'm implementing into my day to day.
Yes. Beautiful. That's incredible. It's completely like shifting the mindset, right? As an artist, I think that we get so caught up in our own hoo-la-la, if you will, of our brains. Hoo-la-la. I like that. I'm going to trademark that. No, I'm kidding. The hoo-la-la of it all. And we don't necessarily schedule things out the way we should or kind of go about them in a very business oriented kind of thing. I was having a similar dialogue with, a young man yesterday about that as well. It's like you really have to make this a business and stick up for yourself and figure out the best way to present yourself, to the world, if you will, and for yourself. Through all of the trials and tribulations that you've gone through, I'm curious, has there been one person, maybe two people that you really consider to be your like number one fan or biggest supporter?
Me. I used to kind of long for people to support me, and I just don't anymore. Because, in my case too, people have, in the organization, being a leader for all these years, I started to say to people, if you think that I'm going to fulfill all your wishes as a human being and look at me as somebody who's going to be your be all end all, I will disappoint you because I'm a flawed human being. And and people say, oh, you're awesome. You're awesome. And I say, no, I'm not awesome. My practice of Buddhism is awesome. That I can absolutely, without a doubt, tell you that I practice this Buddhism absolutely correctly. And that's why it's awesome. But I'm not awesome. I'm constantly a work in progress. I'm constantly, And so I think it's like, Crohn's disease really brought me to that. Like nobody gave me Crohn's disease. It's a deeper purpose of my life, living my vow, as we say in Nichiren Buddhism, that I, from the remotest past, I made the choice to come into this lifetime with these set of circumstances, with these obstacles, and to practice with a mentor, Daisaku Ikeda, who shows me the way of standing up alone. But I'll take all the support I can get, but I'm not going to count on it. I got to be the one that supports me and pats me on the back and gives me a reward every single week.
There we go. Give Susan a cookie, damn it. She needs it this week, okay? A good glass of red. What's your go-to red wine? Is it like a Pinot Noir or
Cabernet? It used to be Merlot, but then it just, for some reason, I just started not liking that. Started tasting Cabernet. Yeah, Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah, no, I totally feel you.
Yeah, and now I'm trying to not drink during the week. That's my goal right now is, because, as you age, you can't recover from even one glass of alcohol. It's like, oh God, okay. Got stuff to do. Yeah.
It catches up with you quickly. Yeah. No, I feel
totally.
Exactly. Yeah. Production must keep on going forward. So my next question is kind of, what are your goals for, say, the next 3 to 5 or even 10 years from now, in everything that you do?
I want to be Betty White. I want to keep working until I'm 100. I want to live till 105 now. I was 100 now because I have young grandchildren.
I love it.
I want to see them grow up and see what they become. They're already amazing.
Yes.
I have so much I want to accomplish. And, that's why I'm concentrating on keeping my health good and getting coaches. And I'm starting a health program next Monday, which is also a accountability health program. They're going to be coaching me, keeping on me, watching what I'm eating, my habits, all that. So I really realized I had to have that kind of help, too. And, I really want to tell stories that move people's lives and give them hope and joy and happiness. Because I think, art is a place where people can heal. When you go into a movie theater, every time I go in a movie theater, whoever I'm with, I put my hand on their thigh or touch their arm when the lights go down. Because it's just, that amazing time when you can go into a story and learn about yourself and learn about others. And, so.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Beautiful. I love that. Fantastic. And then my question that tends to stump people, or they're like, oh, that's weird, is if you could talk to your future self 15 years from now, what would you say to your future self?
Can I say the F word? You are a fucking warrior. You are somebody who accomplished so much, and people will remember it for the rest of their lives. Thank you for working really hard.
I love that. Absolutely. And then you've already kind of mentioned it, and I'm guessing it would be the same, but a life motto that you really live by, if you could share that with us.
I think it's those two things. My life is for the sake of serving others. So every moment that kind of comes in, I mean, it really came to me the last time I almost died. So it's in my life. It's a way of life. I'm always thinking, I know that whatever I do, even if no one's watching, it affects people. The interconnectedness, or we call it dependent origination. And this, say yes with purpose, say no with conviction. If I say yes, I'm showing up 100%. If I say no, I stand with that. And I have really been able to garner respect because of it. Where I used to feel like a feather in the wind, and I could never please everybody, and I could never, accomplish anything. I'm just, oh, I forgot about this. Oh my God, that's right. I told that person. It used to be agony. No wonder my gut was exploding. I could never remember what lie I told people when I'd walk in the room. I could, I never had, what story did they know about me, or what have I told them? Or, it just was so agonizing so basically it's, I guess the other thing is,
right.
Be yourself, be your authentic. I know it sounds kind of kitschy nowadays, be your authentic self, but it's true. Find the true you and live that. It's kind of like what you see is what you get when you meet Susan Damante. There's no lying. There's no cheating. There's no falsehood. It's just what you see is what you get. And that's why I feel my Crohn's disease can't nest. Crohn's disease can't nest, even though I know I still have that causality in my life. It can't manifest anymore because I'm living with purpose. I'm living with integrity. I'm living with truth. I don't lie. I can't lie. I can't pretend. I can pretend on stage, but I can't pretend to people. And I have to speak out when something happens. I have to dialogue with people, tell the truth. God, the other day, like I said, I had said, oh my gosh, I made a date. That's a rarity that I don't know what my schedule is and to leave somebody hanging. But it used to be a regular thing day after day, and have to find out what lie I was going to tell people because I couldn't make it, or, whatever. And so, yeah, I think those are my mottos. Say, be true to yourself, reveal your true self, say yes with purpose, no with conviction, and authentic self.
Be your true authentic self.
Yeah. Stay in the precious moment. Because I used to, like, forever, I would go, oh my God, what did I do in the past? What did I do in the past? I can't believe I did that. It's so terrible. What's going to happen in the future? What's going to happen in the future? Oh my gosh, I can't move. I can't move. Until that was in New York, I had that realization that how can you stay in, and Nichiren says, stay in this precious moment. That's where your power is. I was also listening to Eckhart Tolle at that time in 2003 on the A train. And he's like, I want you to ask yourself, what is the value of the past? I go, oh. Now I want you to ask yourself, what have you ever accomplished in the future? And it's like, well, you can't accomplish something in the future because it hasn't happened. And what's the value of the past? How it serves this moment. And that was a turning point for me too, was I have to, so I even talk to myself sometimes. I'll go, okay, Susan, what's happening right now? What can you do right now? And then I can calm myself down and do whatever it is at this moment.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I actually, thank you. I just want to let everyone know who's listening as well as watching on YouTube, where can they follow you? What are your social media platforms that you're on, and how can they follow along with what is to come for Susan Damante?
And all of my social media, you can click on the icons there. But basically, I'm me. I'm Susan Damante. I don't have monikers. I don't have funny things. It's just Twitter, Susan Damante, Instagram, Susan Damante, LinkedIn, Susan Damante. Yeah, and my website is susandamante.com.
Keeping it simple. I like it. All across the board, Susan Damante. I'll definitely put links and everything down below so you can definitely check out more of Susan's work. And yes, huge shout out and thank you so much, Susan, for sharing so much of your personal story and for being on the Creative Lotus podcast. I appreciate it. Congratulations and good luck with this. Thank you so much to Susan Damante for an amazing interview and sharing so many of her stories as well as her personal journey. And this week's Buddhist quote of the week is, "Life is painful. It has thorns like the stem of a rose. Culture and art are the roses that bloom on the stem. The flower is yourself, your humanity. Art is the liberation of the humanity inside yourself," by Daisaku Ikeda. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Go ahead and take a look down in the description. Please give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts if you can, and go ahead and give us a thumbs up on YouTube, as well as hit that subscribe button and hit that ding bell if you want to go ahead and get notifications for when a new episode comes out. Thank you once again, and I will see you in the next episode of the Creative Lotus Podcast. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Creative Lotus Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Zaki. Please go ahead and subscribe, rate us, and write a review, and follow me at Alan Zaki on social media. I look forward to having more amazing creative dialogues on the next episode.